guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be filming my birth story today and also introducing you to our baby girl. She's asleep right now, so I'm hoping that she stays asleep while I film this, and then at the end I will try to show her a little better. But if you follow me, then you know that it has been almost a month since I filmed a video. Sorry if you can hear her squeaking. She does that a lot, so she'll probably be making noises throughout this video. So in my last video I said that I was debating on filming a birth vlog for you guys, but I wasn't sure 100%, and I really wanted to. I had all the plans to, but it was impossible to film a birth vlog, and I will get into that later. But I just wanted to go over with you guys my birth story and how postpartum is going and how everything motherhood is going so far. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the birth story. So if you watched my last video, then you will know that I was induced electively at 39 weeks. That was recommended by my OB and something we discussed, and we decided we were going to go ahead and go through with it, and I am so happy that we did. I loved my induction, and even though labor was awful, I am very glad that we got induced, and I would definitely do that again. But my induction was scheduled for October the 11th at 5 p.m. And if you have ever been induced, they go ahead and tell you that if it is your first baby, to expect it to be a lengthy process. So when we got in at 5 o'clock, they started the induction and the I guess the admission process and drawing labs and inserting IVs and just going over everything with you. I had never been admitted to a hospital before in my life, so this was a totally new experience for me. But they went ahead and told me that it could be up to 72 hours before I would deliver, but they were thinking around 48 hours is the mark that they guesstimate for first-time moms. So we were already planning on being there for a long time. We brought everything with us to prepare to be sitting around for days, and that didn't happen for us, which I'll get into. But we were fully expecting to be at the hospital for 48 hours at least before even having her, but we were hoping on 24 or less is what the nurses were saying. So we didn't start the actual induction until 6:30, I believe. And how we did my induction was we just did Cytotec, and they were going to give me 4 rounds of Cytotec every 4 hours, so 1 pill every 4 hours. And then after that, if I still had not progressed, they would go ahead and give me Pitocin. So I got my first round at 6:30, and when they checked me, I was still completely closed and firm, I think was the word they used. I'm not sure. I was completely closed and not thinned out. So that's kind of what they were expecting, and they really weren't expecting any progression at all with the Cytotec, at least in the first couple of rounds. So after I was given the first round of Cytotec, I had to lay for an hour, and then after the hour they would take me off of the monitor so that I could get up and walk and bounce on a ball and move, as long as everything was okay with her, which everything was fine. So they took me off the monitors and I bounced on a ball, and I did that until about 10 o'clock because they put me back on the monitor to monitor everything for 30 minutes before they could give me the next round of Cytotec. And at that point I didn't really feel anything. They asked if I was having any contractions at all, and I said I felt some tightness, but nothing other than what I had already been feeling, which I assumed was Braxton Hicks because I had no progression. So they monitored me for 30 minutes and then gave me my second round of Cytotec, monitored me for an hour, and then released me from the monitors again. And at that point I was going to try and sleep some, because at that point it was 10:30. So I would be taking off the monitors around 11. So I was going to try to sleep at that point. And with my second round of Cytotec, I started to feel some cramping. It wasn't just tightening anymore. It was like period cramps, but it still wasn't anything too intense. And so once they took me off the monitors, I was going to try to sleep. But I don't think I was able to sleep a lot because the cramping was so uncomfortable. So they came in and put me back on the monitors around 2 o'clock in the morning, and I told them that I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable, but it was nothing unbearable. So they put me on the monitors at 2 o'clock to monitor me until 2:30, and in that time it started getting kind of worse, and they ended up telling me that they did not want to give me another round of Cytotec because my contractions were too close together, and they didn't want them to be any closer together than they already were for her sake, which was great. And I was able to push through the contractions. I was definitely having them at this point. They checked me again, and I think I was at a 1 at this point. So I was having some progression, but not a ton. And after that, it just progressed and got increasingly worse. And I don't know if I'm just a baby when it comes to pain, but it was excruciating, like to the point I was unbearable. So by 3 o'clock in the morning, I was in excruciating pain. I was moaning, I was trying to get through them. It was unbearable at that point. And the nurse asked if I wanted any pain medicine, and I said yes, because I was in a lot of pain. And she gave me Nubain, which immediately made everything so much better. So I was able to sleep a little bit more, and I was able to rest. And at this point, I'm not sure what time it was or any concept of that at all, but I was able to sleep for a little bit, I believe, until the contractions got to the point that the Nubain was not helping. So at that point, when I wasn't having a contraction, the Nubain would completely knock me out, and I would not be able to even lift my head up. But when the contractions would hit, everything wore off, it felt like, and it was just excruciating pain again. And at this point, I was like, it was like an out of body, like I couldn't even control my body. It was the weirdest thing. And my contractions at this point were less than a minute apart. To me, it felt like 30 seconds tops. So the nurse came back in, and I was begging her for anything, but I was not able to get any more pain medicine, and she checked me, and I was a 2. She tried to stretch me and say that I was a 3, but I think she was just doing that to make me feel better, because I was definitely not a 3, I don't think. So at this point I was still a 2. I couldn't get any pain medicine, and they don't like to give you an epidural until you are a 3. So she was just trying to help me breathe through them, which was impossible, I feel like, at that point. So I believe around 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock, I'm not sure, they were able to give me some more pain medicine, which at this point didn't help anything at all. And they asked how bearable it was, and I said it was unbearable. So they said that they would go ahead and put in an order for the epidural, and then give me a little bit to decide if I was ready for it or not. And I just remember looking at the nurse and saying, no, I'm ready for it now, so go ahead and get everything ready now. Like, I'm ready now. because as a nurse, I do know that those things take a lot of time, and it can take over an hour before the anesthesiologist even comes to give the epidural. So I was like, absolutely not. Like, go ahead and put the order in, go ahead and call the anesthesiologist, do whatever you gotta do. Like, I want it as soon as possible. And I'm not gonna lie, that's the last thing I remember. I know it was around 6 o'clock at that point. And the only thing I remember after that was waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning, being woken up by the nurses and the anesthesiologist with the epidural. And at that point it was 8 o'clock in the morning exactly, because I remember him calling it out. And the epidural was amazing. I didn't even feel the needle go in my back at all. I 100% had zero issues with it. It worked immediately. I loved it. 10 out of 10. Would never do it again without an epidural. But that's just me. And so at that point, I'm pretty sure I passed out again and slept until, I'm going to go ahead and guess that it was like 9:30 at this point. And I had another nurse come in and just say hey, because I had seen her at another visit, and she was just coming to say hey and check on me, and woke me up to see how I was doing. And I felt great, and I remember saying, I felt great ever since having the epidural. The only thing I feel is like a ton of pressure when I have contractions, which don't hurt at all. And I remember her saying, you have a ton of pressure. And I was like, yeah, but it's only whenever I'm having a contraction. But it doesn't hurt. And she was like, yeah, but we should probably check you if you're having a ton of pressure. And I was like, okay, like that's fine, whatever. And she left and I passed back out. And then the only thing I remember after that was being rolled over, like having to be woken up basically and rolled over to be checked. And the next thing I remember was another nurse checking me and saying, she is an 8 with a bulging sac. She's about to have this baby. And at that point, I was very awake, and I looked over at Jamie, who was on the couch, and he just jumped up, and we both were like, what? And she was like, yeah, as soon as your water breaks, you're going to be ready to start pushing, and your water is very close to breaking on its own. At that point, everybody started rushing in, everybody was setting things up, they were calling the doctor, and getting the room set up. I guess was still under the pain medicine loopiness, so I still couldn't hardly hold my head open. Everything was kind of a blur, but I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like how? Like I don't understand how I could be about to have this baby when they told us that we were going to be basically like hanging out for days. And I feel like I hadn't even slept at all. So once they told me that I was an 8 and everybody was getting ready to push, I remember looking at one of the nurses and saying, I think I'm going to be sick. And she brought me a bag and I started throwing up. And I truly think that I was throwing up because I was in so much shock and it was just happening so fast. And I remember one of the nurses saying, as soon as she throws up, her water is probably going to break. And the other nurse brought me a bag and I threw up and instantly my water broke. So at that point, they get me up in the stirrups and they were wanting to start doing practice pushes. And it was so fast. Everything just happened so fast. I remember looking at my husband and saying, have you called our moms? And he was like, no, because everything was happening so quickly. And I remember asking the nurses, can we take a few minutes and call our moms? Sorry guys, my battery died, so I had to change that, and now I have her sitting in a little lounger hoping that she will be content, but it's not looking to be that way. I think she's waking up, so I'm gonna have to get her. Okay, let's try this again, and I don't even know where I was, but I think the last thing I said was that my water broke as soon as I threw up, and all the nurses were laughing because they thought that was funny, I guess. But Jamie was like freaking out, like he did not realize what was going on or how fast this was gonna go. Are you squeaking? But after that, they put me up into stirrups and they wanted to start doing some practice pushes. And then the nurses were saying that she was right there, she was very close, they could see her hair, all this stuff. So they ran to get the doctor. And I remember one of the nurses coming back in saying, the doctor is in surgery right now. She wants to know if she can wait. And basically stop pushing. And I had another nurse who looked at me and was like, I've delivered babies before. If you have to push, push. Like, we're not going to prevent you from pushing when your body needs to push. And I remember being like, okay, well, I don't like have a huge urge to push. When I have a contraction, I have a small one. So as long as I can like kind of push to, you know, ease that urge without just pushing, you know, trying to get her out. I hope this makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense to anybody unless you had a baby and maybe know the feelings. So we just kind of did that and waited for the nurse. But every time that I had a contraction and would start to push laying on my back, I would vagal out and my blood pressure would drop. And I would get really dizzy and feel like I was going to pass out. So they would flip me over on my side to get her off of my vena cava. So they were basically saying that the reason why I was doing that was because she was pressing on my vena cava, I believe is the blood vessel they were talking about. So they would flip me over on my side, I would feel fine, would lay there for a little bit, and then flip back onto my back. And then at that point, I think the doctor said that I could start pushing again because she was on her way. And she wasn't like crowning or anything, so I could start pushing again. So I would push on my side some, push on my back, vagal out, flip over to my side, push some more, and be fine. But I felt like I couldn't get a good push on my side like I could on my back. I couldn't control it as well. So they flipped me back on my back and I was pushing. And we just did that for what felt like forever until the doctor came. When the doctor came in, I remember saying to one of the nurses, I just feel so weak. Like I feel like I can't push as hard anymore, as effectively as I could before because I'm so tired. And she told the doctor, and the doctor came in and said, if you feel like you don't want to push anymore or you can't push anymore, we can use a vacuum. She brought it to me. I already knew what one was, being a nurse and having friends who have had babies, and I knew I did not want that. I even spoke that to the nurse beforehand, before the doctor came in, that I did not want to use a vacuum at all if possible. So when the doctor was showing it to me, I had the nurses in the back like saying like, no, you can do it. You don't need the vacuum. You got this. Like, you can push her out yourself. And I remember telling the doctor, like, give me one more chance. And if I can't push her out on my own, then we can talk about the vacuum. Because I think I was able to push for 3 hours before they would put me in for a C-section, is what the doctor said. Again, I'm sorry this is all over the place, and I hope that it even makes sense, but in my mind, everything was all over the place anyway, so that's how I remember it. But I remember asking the doctor if I could just push one more time on my own. and at that point I gave it everything I had, and she started crowning. So they were like, you got this, you don't need a vacuum, she'll be out the next push, so just keep pushing. And she was. I pushed one more time and she came out. I think I pushed for a total of 45 minutes, which if you've had a baby, you will know that that's really not that long. And like, as a first time mom, and I don't know, I guess to the doctor that's not a long time. I've had friends that have pushed for over an hour. And I've had friends that have pushed for hours and ended up having a C-section. So 45 minutes was not that bad. And she came out just fine. She didn't have any issues. She was perfect. So that was my birth story. Overall, it was crazy and hectic, but it went by super fast. I think that from induction to birth was 17 hours, which seems like a long time. But for a first induction, that really is not a long time. It went a lot quicker than we all thought that it would. But I was so happy with my induction. I would do it again, all over again. The nurses were phenomenal. The doctors were phenomenal. And I loved everything about my delivery. I loved, except for the excruciating contractions. And again, maybe I was just being a baby because I was only a 2 during all of this, and I got my epidural right at a 3, but I would never want to feel those contractions again. They were the worst thing I've ever been through my entire life. But as far as the delivery and the ending of the labor after the epidural, I'm very happy with how it went, even though I vagaled out every time I pushed. But overall, I had a great experience, and she came out perfectly fine and no issues, so I'm very, very thankful for that. She was born at 11:23 in the morning, and she weighed 7 pounds exactly and measured 20 inches exactly, so easy to remember, and we are over the moon excited. As far as postpartum has been, I've loved it. I was very afraid that I was going to have postpartum anxiety. So far, I have not struggled with any of that, and she will be 4 weeks tomorrow. So, thankfully, I haven't had any issues at all. I've loved every minute of it. I have gotten good sleep, in my opinion, as opposed to what I was going in thinking. She sleeps pretty well. She is an amazing baby, and we are so in love with her. Me having a good postpartum experience, I correlate it with my husband being able to take 2.5 weeks off of work to stay with me, and that was the biggest help. And my #1 advice for anybody, if your husband can take off any time at all and stay with you, or if you have somebody who can just stay with you the whole time as long as possible, it made a huge difference. I had somebody there with me at all times to help her, and we were just like riding on this newborn bliss of a wave. So we were just happy and everything was great, and I still kind of feel that way. I will say when he went back to work, it was a lot harder on me because all of a sudden it was just me, and I didn't have anybody to hold her when I needed to go do something or wanted to take a shower or anything. So now it's just me when he's at work, and it's kind of hard because she's so used to being held that she just wants to be held all the time. People tell us not to do that, but I'm okay with it because she's our baby, and I know that one day she's not gonna want me to hold her anymore. So if she wants me to hold her all the time, I know I'm doing it to myself, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But I still love it, and I'm so happy. I hated being pregnant, as most of you know. I did not have a good pregnancy. I did not have a good time. It was not enjoyable. So the postpartum experience being so amazing has helped so much. But yeah, that is my birth story and how everything has been going postpartum. Thank you so much for letting me take off weeks from my last video and nobody judging me. But I'm gonna go ahead and show her to you. Maybe she'll still stay asleep, I'm not sure. She's not dead asleep. Maybe, I don't know. Oh man. This is our Avery Marie. This is the weirdest angle to hold her. Avery Marie, she is so perfect and beautiful, and we are obsessed with her. Even the dogs love her. Everything has been so amazing, and the transition has been so much better than I even thought that it could possibly be. She's dead to the world, so I'm gonna put her down now. And she has a head full of hair, and I have no idea where she got that from, because me and her dad both were born with blonde hair, and we had some hair, but not as much as she has, and not as dark as she has had. So I'm not sure where she got it from, but I'm loving it, and I hope that it doesn't fall out and it stays this way. But that is going to be all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you to everybody who has followed along this journey with me, and I'm so excited to start filming videos now with a newborn. So I'm gonna give myself grace. I'm not sure how often I'll film or what I'll film, because right now we're still in survival mode. But eventually I do want to start filming routine videos and showing more of our life, and I will get to that. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so that you can follow along with the rest of our journey. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.